Welcome to the start of our second BPM Focus Week. This time, we're diving into the topic of digital business transformation. For this purpose, we've compiled a collection of our most important and most popular webinars covering everything that BPM beginners and advanced practitioners need to know. From digitalization and BPM basics to KPIs, metrics, and organizational goals. We'll be answering questions like, how can you discover automation potentials with process mining, how to efficiently implement workflow automation, or how to align your ERP and process management. In today's session, you will learn about the benefits of digitalization and the 3 key steps you need to take to make the most of your company's digital twin. My name is Vincent Paquette, and I'm your host for this Focus Week. Our expert, Eugenio Lobo Cruz, will guide us through the topic. To kick off this digital twin session, we'd like to show you a quick video.
Life is dynamic, and at some point, we all feel lost. With the help of maps, built from GPS data, we manage to orientate ourselves and adapt to changing circumstances the same way you can lead your company to success. Models are the map for your business. Turn digital transformation from a hurdle into a sprint. Transform your architecture into a highway. Evolve your processes into shortcuts. Leverage business process management, enterprise architecture, and governance, risk, and compliance to take sustainable, agile decisions based on the digital twin of your enterprise. Set your destination. Design your route. See how far you already are. And stay aware of possible threats, so you can decide which path your digital transformation shall take. We create competitive advantage through digital advantage. Benefit from over 25 years of experience and steer your enterprise to digital success with BOC Group.
Thank you for that introduction. I'd also like to welcome all of you to this webinar where we will be discussing digital transformation. Not only digital transformation, but how we can make sure that our transformation is sustainable and that we can use it as part of our competitive advantage. And one of the things that we're going to focus on is seeing how we can move away from transformation projects, which are sort of one-shot projects or which are going to fix one thing. And we move into something that's more of an overarching transformation architecture. One of the 2 topics that we're going to start with is seeing what digitalization can bring and what digital advantage means. So first of all, let's look at this survey that was carried out with some of the top German companies, where they were basically asked what their priorities were in terms of their business plans and their business strategies. This report found that over the last couple of years, digitalization has become one of the most important topics, increasing every year since they started measuring in 2016. We can find that almost 50% of companies have digitalization among their top 3 topics, or digital transformation among their top 3 topics. We see that 56% of the companies are actually consider digitalization as one of their priorities. And we find that also 55% of the respondents not only consider it one of their priorities, but that they expect to transform their business model and their business processes through digitalization. So that means that they expect to do not only digitalization here and there, but actually to include it as part of the transformation for their business model as a whole and for their business processes. And of course, we also expect this number to continue increasing. We see that it has already increased over the last couple of years, but there's definitely a lot more opportunities to use digitalization to make sure we have a competitive advantage. As the months go by, month after month, we find that there are new technologies which we can implement into our organizations to make sure that we continue being valid, that we continue proposing something that is competitive. So when we talk about digitalization, what are some of the things that we talk about? Well, first of all, we want to make sure that we use digitalization to optimize, right? This means that we're able to improve our cost, our time, our quality. We're able to improve efficiency and effectivity. So we can do this through many ways, and we want to make sure that digitalization is something that we can implement throughout the organization. One of the things that we have to keep in mind, though, is a quote that Bill Gates shared with us. The first rule of technology is that if we apply it efficiently, it will magnify efficiency, right? So this means that if we want to implement digitalization, we will be able to magnify efficiency, whether we implement it through automation or through other ways. Now, the second part of this quote is very important because it says that if automation is applied in an inefficient operation, it will magnify inefficiency. So this means that just because we automate something or just because we buy a new technology or a new system doesn't mean it's necessarily going to improve things. Buying things on their own will not improve things. What we need to do is make sure that we first optimize and then we digitalize or then we buy that technology. Or, of course, we can buy it whenever we want, but we want to make sure that we're optimizing before we're expecting to have that awesome result that we're expecting. This means that we, first of all, need to understand our current situation, see how we can optimize it, see how we can get rid of waste, how we can get rid of those activities that are not necessary, how we can make sure that communication is better, collaboration is better. Once we have that, then we can introduce those technologies which are going to make things faster and more automated. Of course, the design and the analysis of our current situation may also include technologies, may also include simulations and things like that. So it doesn't mean you cannot use technology to analyze and to make things more efficient. But it does mean that when you're thinking about automating, you got to make sure that first you improve, then you automate. So, of course, optimization means that we have to understand what's existing, improve it, and then automate it. So when we talk about digitalization, it's also going to help us bring new offerings. And we're not talking just about any new offerings. Let's think about a little bit in the past. In the past, we had a very traditional way of thinking that a company could either offer products or services. And nowadays, we look at it more in a way where companies can offer products through services or services through products. Companies offer a mix, or sometimes companies offer product as a service, things like that. But the idea is that in the future, we also move more towards a smart offering. And this is something that we can do through digitalization. When we think of a smart offering, we can consider things like Drive Now, or we're getting away from the traditional use of cars where one person owns one car or one family owns one car. We're moving into a digital setting where we use cars as a service. We have a mobile app where we can find a car anywhere on the street, choose it with a QR code, and start driving that car for as long as we need it. When we're done with it, we can leave it on the street again. This goes not only with the examples of cars, but we want to make sure that we apply this in every product that we provide. And we want to make sure that it's not just having an app. We want to make sure we make things also more efficient. For example, let's imagine that you're looking for a car because you want to drive somewhere. And of course, the app can tell you where the closest car is. But perhaps if we really want to make a smart offering, we can make sure that that app also considers if you actually walked 300 meters, you would find a car that's maybe a little bit further in walking distance, but that car is parked on an avenue that actually already goes in the direction that you're going. It may take a little bit walking, but it is going to save you some driving time, which in the end is going to bring your cost down or the time of driving down. Another example of a smart offering could be food delivery. A lot of supermarkets nowadays are offering the delivery of your groceries, right? You can buy your groceries online and they will be delivered to your house. But what if you could also find the recipes? What if you could find video tutorials of how to cook, for example, a specific pasta? So what if the supermarket offers some tutorial videos and it offers you to buy all of the ingredients in that tutorial video and be sent to your home? That's another example of a smart offering that can obviously be achieved through digitalization. So now, how do I get there? How can I find all of these digitalization opportunities? There's a few options that I'm going to propose here. One of them is to identify and tackle the most pressuring issues that need digitalization. So Talk to everyone in your organization, talk to your clients, and see what are their issues, what are the things that they believe could be digitalized or automated, or where technology could be applied. With that information, we can implement many projects that are going to increase our degree of digitalization, right? We're going to see which functions may also require new processes or what new offerings we can create through digitalization. Some companies which are very innovative could even try to start using robotic process automation, using bots, whether those are chatbots or any workflows that they can implement through digitalization. So the answer is yes, you basically have to do all of these or some of these, and these are all correct answers, right? Now we have to keep in mind that there are definitely more ideas or ways that we could approach this, depending on your industry, depending on what sort of competitive advantage you're looking for. But the idea is that we want to make sure that everything we do is, as I said before, not just a one-time thing. We want to make sure that it is sustainable. One of the things that we have to keep in mind is, of course, that if we want to have a competitive advantage, we require digital. All of our consumers nowadays are always making sure that a new provider or a new supplier also has a digital option, right? So when we think of, for example, looking for a new bank, we always want to make sure, or consumers nowadays always want to make sure that that bank not only has office down the street, but that they also have a nice mobile app, that they also have a nice web application where they can also take care of their transactions or monitor their transactions there. Our clients are expecting digital services as well, not only with banks, but if they're buying clothes, if they're buying anything really. And not only digital in the sense of, okay, they have a mobile app and they have a web banking, but also making sure that it's smart, right? For example, if I have a mobile app, I expect that mobile app to sync with my e-banking immediately. So not that it's going to take 2 days to sync or next day. We want to make sure that when we do implement digital, it's something that is immediate, it's syncing, it's giving immediate responses, right? So let's now move into a new topic, into how we can dive deeper into how we can use digital to create competitive advantages, how we can make it sustainable, and how we can get there. So this is what a lot of organizations do. Basically, this view in the middle represents our company, and they implement digitalization through projects, right? Through transformation projects. Those transformation projects are usually impacting products, new services that we want to have. Perhaps it's a project that's going to improve our collaboration with our stakeholders. Perhaps it's a project that transforms our business processes. And most of our projects are going to be using IT for it, whether they are changing processes through a new technology that was purchased or a new way of authenticating, a new app, a new workflow, right? We're most of the time using technology. The thing is that when we implement these projects, they're not always being embedded into the organization. As I said, we don't want one-time projects. We need to make sure that we're anchoring our projects into the organization, into the operation of it all. And we need to make sure that our projects are not only touching one department, but that they're looking into the whole landscape of processes, that they fit in with the rest of the organization, that they fit into our IT landscape, so that we're not just rebuying technologies that we might have already had functions for, or that we're buying technologies that are not going to be reusable. So we need to make sure that we have an IT framework in mind that's going to allow us to, first of all, make use of our specialists, make use of our management skills to make sure that whenever we think about digital, we think about our strategy, we think about our business models, and we make sure that, of course, this digital advantage that we're looking for is going to have a positive impact and a sustainable impact. So any transformation that we do, of course, we're expecting for it to have a positive impact. And we talked about this earlier. To make sure we have a positive impact, we need to make sure that we're not just automating. First, we're optimizing, and then we're automating. And then the other thing is that we want to make sure that things are reusable, right? This goes for technologies, this goes for processes, this goes for any microservice way of thinking. We want to make sure things are reusable. So that's sort of our framework. That's how we can think about how we can implement digitalization sustainably. Let's look at this little framework here. This is sort of an architecture framework. We know that most companies, or if not all companies, have a strategy, they have a business model, they offer products and services, they have processes and IT and they're always thinking about transformation. So this is our architecture model. And over here we have a real company. And the idea is that we want to make sure that we're able to have sort of our real company and also a digital company. What do we mean by this? We're obviously not going to open two companies. We mean that we want to be able to document our company and make sure that we have a way to transform those real world processes into also digital processes, which may be modeled in a tool, which may be simulated in a tool, and then are turned back into the real process. Whatever improvement was done in the digital process, we have a way to reflect it back into the real process. Same thing goes for technology. In technologies, we can run simulations, we can run tests, but we want to make sure that we're able to always keep a connection between the real world and the digital world, the digital models and the execution of everything. So it's not just keeping everything digital or just making models. We want to make sure that this corporate architecture can describe in a way how is our corporate structure, how is our business model, what does our application landscape look like, and our processes look like, right? So we define our current state, then we can define our target states, and then of course carry out the transformation to make sure that whatever we planned in a digital way, we can deliver in a real way. Of course, we can still use digitalization, but we make sure that it comes back into the operation. And this is when we introduce the concept of digital twins, connecting the real world and the digital world so that they are actually just one world. And the way that we can do that is through, as I mentioned, or as I described earlier, but now we're going to create this little model where we have design, connect, and engage, right? We want to make sure we design the current state, the target state. Then we connect the digital world and the real world. And then we can engage. So make sure that everything is anchored into the organization, that we have indicators that are going to help us see if things are working, and that we have ways of monitoring and reflecting whatever is changed in the digital world back into the real world. As I said, we have our real company, we have our digital model, and we're designing, connecting, and engaging in order to deliver all this sustainable digitalization. Again, we have to think of how we're going to be able to reuse things, how we can make sure that we're not just thinking of projects that are going to help us one time, but that they're going to serve us as Lego pieces. For example, let's imagine that we introduce an authentication technology, which helps us sign into our email. But why not also use that authentication technology to also sign us into our building or give us access to buildings, right? So we want to make sure that every technology that we're acquiring is going to be reusable or reuse our existing technologies. Let's imagine you are an insurance company, and of course, you might insure all kinds of different clients. Among those, you might have specific insurance for your skiers. Why not allow your mobile or your skiers to actually buy insurance while they are on the ski lift? Well, we know that you already have a mobile app. We know that you have an e-banking or an e-payment system. Maybe you already have integrations to PayPal. Perhaps we might use Bluetooth or something like that to locate your users and send them notifications about the availability of this insurance. Whatever different technologies you might have, the idea is that we have all those microservices. We have Bluetooth, we have e-banking, we have our mobile app. We put them all together and we're able to deliver insurance for our skiers while they're on the ski lift. This is just one example, but we could apply this in any situation. So how can we do all of this? How can we design, for example? There are many tools. We can, for example, document our business processes. We can have catalogs of information. We can document our applications. This is where we can plan our current state and our to-be state. And here's an example looking at Adonis where we have process landscape, we have business process diagrams, we have our catalogs of all of our documentation, all of our documents. And then we also see a comparison as is state and a to-be state. Of course, with that, we want to make sure that we also start connecting. Anything that we create, everything that we're trying to digitalize, we want to make sure we're also able to connect it. For example, how can we make sure that our current systems or our new systems that we're introducing are also going to be connected to our existing systems? Here we have an example of how ServiceNow is giving live information to Addo IT, information related to the number of incidents that an application may have, or the number of outages, SLA breaches, and so on. So we want to make sure that we're getting real-time information connected between our applications that is going to help us make the decisions, that is going to make sure that everything is interconnected appropriately. Of course, when we want to digitalize, we talked about, first of all, optimizing. So we want to make sure we calculate, we run those simulations, which of course we can do in Adonis, to see what we expect to get out of this. We want to make sure we have realistic simulations. That's very important. We don't just want to tweak the numbers and make them look all perfect. We want to make sure we have realistic simulations that can help us justify the changes that we're going to make. And then, of course, we want to act on those changes. Once we implement those changes, once we embed those changes in the organization, we want to make sure we start analyzing, right? We see how those results are having effects. We see which roles are going to be impacted, which risks might change, and so on. And of course, we're able to do the full circle. One example that we have here of automation is with our partner, Tim. This is one of our new strategic partners. With the partnership of Adonis and Tim, what we're able to do is to, first of all, design our processes. We can design our current state of our processes and our to-be state of our processes. That to-be state is obviously already optimized. Once we do that, we're able to have an integration to Tim where we use action classes, which allow us to actually automate our processes in Tim. So we design them in Adonis, we synchronize with Tim, and we see that that process that we had in Adonis is now an executable process that we can have in Tim. This executable process is going to take into account the roles that we had in Adonis, the documents, the forms, and all of that we had in Adonis, and it's going to allow us to implement it very quickly without having to program, without having to do any of that. Simply with the integration and with the synchronization between Tim and Adonis, we're able to deliver very fast workflows or process engines with this integration. One of the nice things about this integration is that it not only allows us to do this synchronization, but let's say that I want to change anything in my process here. I add one task or remove one task or change one task. The nice thing is that I can very quickly sync with Tim again, and my process will be immediately updated. This goes with the idea of connecting, right? That we have immediate feedback. Just like if I do a transaction on my mobile app and I immediately see it on the web application, we have the same thing here. If I do any change in Adonis, I will immediately see that change in the process execution side of things. So anyone that's executing a process will see those changes immediately. And of course, we want to make sure we have insights. With Tim, we're able to monitor those insights about all of our process executions. Over time, we can see how many open processes we have, who's taking care of what, how many open issues somebody might have, things like that. So we're able to control, we're able to embed this process and go through the full circle. And this is what we do. This is one of the ways that, of course, we can connect the real company with the digital image, the digital twin, of course, using Adonis, AutoIT, and GRC, right? These are three tools that are going to help you document your process landscape, your architecture landscape, make sure we see the current state, make sure we optimize, we plan for the changes, and we're able to do that transformation, not only the documentation side of things, but also connecting it with the real world through partnerships like Tim, with ServiceNow, or with the tools on their own. Of course, this is not an easy fit. And this is something that requires time. It's something that requires practice. So of course, you can start with small steps. You can first of all start by keeping in mind the models that I presented today, keeping in mind your process landscape, seeing how you can have a good documentation of your current process landscape, identify those areas where you need digitalization, identify those elements that are going to allow you to have reusable digitalization, right? And sustainable digitalization, and identify what are those areas that are going to give us the biggest competitive advantage, right? So in the end, we want to make sure we have agile architecture. We can provide fast solutions, integrated solutions. We want to make sure that they are sustainable, right? That we can reuse them in other projects across different areas, across different departments. There are many times if we have a tool that legal purchased, perhaps another department can also use it. But we want to make sure that this is all transparent, integrated, and sustainable. And of course, we're always trying to get better. And not only as an end result, but already from the groundwork, already when we're optimizing, we want to make sure that digitalization is always going to digitalize something that has always already been improved. All right. So that wraps it up for me. I want to thank you all for your attention. I hope this provided some insight into how you can use digitalization in a sustainable way and in a way that's going to give you a competitive advantage. I'll hand it over to wrap it up for you all, and I hope you have a great afternoon.
To try out the concepts you've seen today, go to our website and get started with our free Adonis version. The same applies, of course, to our Enterprise Architecture Suite Atto IT, as well as Atto GRC. We'd be happy to answer any of your questions. For those of you already using a BOC tool, feel free to contact us through our website or get in touch with your account manager to discuss how you can deliver real value with your company's digital twin. Now, let's assume that you'd like to see whether the goals for each of the steps shown today were actually achieved. This is where we'll be covering in our next session of the Digital Transformation Focus Week. Join us and find out how Adonis supports your process performance management and makes key indicators measurable.